Welcome to Echoes in the Gallery. I'm your host, Susan L. Sistrunk. I'm a lifelong artist, veteran educator, and proud to bring you my first podcast set in a series of volumes. Each episode will air weekly on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tonight, we continue with Volume 1, Beneath the Paint, Episode 2, The Patron, where we'll meet our foe, Stephan Ivanov, and learn what drives his obsession with art. Let us step into the gallery and begin. Episode 2, The Patron. As a child, Stephan Ivanov loved to draw. He found joy in the museum trips he would go on with his mother and relished the moments they spent time together wandering the vast halls and rich mahogany surfaces. Mama would explain to him the history of the pieces of work, their origins, and the lives of the great artists who created them. The smells of the paintings would call out to his senses. It seemed to be another world, a world of magic and mystery, a place only the privileged were allowed to grace the walls, and it called to him. When Stephan was a small boy, his father approved of the visits and the cultural exposure. However, as a businessman who was well off with many international interests, the support waned with time. His father's view was that he had worked hard to bring his family to the United States from Romania. He would not have his only son choose the life of a penniless artist. Stephan rebelled. He would spend hours painting in his room. Mama would sneak him to art lessons while his father was away on business trips. As he grew older, it became more and more challenging to keep his art habit a secret. One day his father came home a day early from a business trip. The art teacher was still in their brownstone, teaching Stephan in the parlor. Into a rage he flew, ordering the instructor out of the house and throwing all of the painting materials into the trash. When he was done destroying everything Stephan had created, the anger turned towards Stephan's mother, for he knew the lessons had been sanctioned and arranged by her. With his temper at its zenith, Stephan's father gave them both an ultimatum. The obsession with painting would stop, or he would leave them both penniless and without support. Mama came to him in tears that night, explaining she had no way to provide for them. He must do as his father asked. Stephan, you're nearly 17. It's time to consider where to go to business school and meet your father's wishes. Stephan collapsed on his bed as the hot tears poured down his cheeks. He knew this day would come eventually, but now he was just beginning to show promise. His resentment towards his mother and father welled up in his heart as if a dam were about to burst. Fine. He would do as his father wanted to save his mother from having nothing, but he would never forgive them both. Stephan snapped back to reality. As a businessman himself now, the only thing which brought him pleasure was collecting the most uncollectible pieces of work possible. What good was all this money without the thing he loved most in the world surrounding him? He would have this painting. As Stephan sat there, he realized he would do just about anything to get it. Gwen sighed as she swung open the glass doors to the Phoenix, the art gallery she and Jonathan owned. That was a joke. It was a money pit, and they were in debt up to their eyeballs. When they first opened it, she loved these marble floors and the smell of the paint on the walls. Now, she couldn't help wondering what they were thinking. Why had they done this? Any of it? We should have just let this place go, Gwen thought to herself. The sound of her heels on the floor almost made her nauseous. The gallery had come to represent all of their faults, lies, and deceptions, and it made her cringe to think of their latest scheme. There was absolutely no way she was going down this road again. After all of this, she was out. She would be lucky if her relationship with Jonathan survived. Hey, boss! Gwen turned and saw Jordan, the gallery assistant, smiling at her from atop the ladder in the room. He was changing the bulbs in the track lighting. Jordan was young and idealistic, a very hard worker. Your classic college kid with a lanky frame, freckles, blue eyes, and a mop of sandy brown hair that never seemed to stay out of his eyes. Hello, Jordan, she smiled back. I have to talk to you. I'll come down. Jordan leaped off the ladder a little too quick for her liking, but she didn't say anything, and she admired his enthusiasm. When he arrived at the bottom, he suddenly became somber. "There was a man here looking for you about 20 minutes ago." Jordan looked at Gwen with trepidation in his eyes. "He was asking about a painting you're looking for. He was about 6'2", with platinum blonde hair and pale blue eyes. Really slender, you know?" Gwen tried her best to keep her composure. "It must have been Yuri. Did he give you his name?" Jordan fished in his back pocket and brought out a black card. He handed it to her, the raised embossed silver letters facing upwards. The text said, "You're running out of time." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at the raised, elegant script with an international number printed at the bottom. Jordan saw her face, and his worry began to rise. "What is going on?" he whispered. "I just have something to take care of," Gwen said shakily, and turned toward the office. Her heels nervously clicked on the marble floor as she entered the office entryway and softly shut the door. The door opened. Jonathan walked in, his face filled with worry when their eyes met. With silent tears, she handed him the card. "The painting's not dry yet," she whispered. "I don't know how to fix it this time." Gwen collapsed into Jonathan's arms and sobbed. "We are about to be in a lot of trouble." The lock on Gwen's apartment doorknob softly clicked and the door swung smoothly open. Light from the hallway spilled around Eric's tall frame, leaving a vast lanky shadow blocking out the illumination. She was at the gallery, so he knew he didn't have to hurry. The small and sparse living room smelled heavily of oil and thinner. He walked in, gazed at the surroundings of antiques and oriental rugs. Gwen was an oil artist, so the odor wasn't unusual. What was odd was the image in the corner. He walked toward it and looked at the signature. Romanov Cernova. The paint was wet. Eric's breath caught in his throat. He pulled out his phone to give his employer very bad news. As the phone rang and brought Mr. Ivanov's voice clear, Eric began to sweat slightly from his brow. "Well?" Stephan asked. "I think I found your painting, but you won't like what the situation is," Eric's voice wavered. "Just tell me." Stephan's voice was crisp, with a heavy amount of dangerous patience. "You said the name of the artist was Romanov Cernova? There's a painting here with that signature. The surface of the painting is wet. I'm not sure what's going on." "Send me a picture." Eric took out his phone and snapped a photo. He was perspiring and wiped under his eyes. As the image uploaded onto his phone, Stephan's anger and confusion grew. Had she forged it? What was she doing? "Find everything you can on the artist Romanov Cernova. I want to know where her information about him came from." "Yes, sir." Eric's voice quivered. The line went dead, and he exited the apartment. An hour later, Eric was searching through pages of web material about Romanov Cernova, timestamps, tracking down locations the information was downloaded from. His apprehension grew. Gwen and Jonathan seemed to be playing a dangerous game with Mr. Ivanov. With hesitation, Eric called his employer. "Tell me," Ivanov stated. Eric proceeded to inform him of everything he had learned and braced for the worst. Heavy breathing and the lack of words gave Eric the level of fury his employer must be experiencing at the moment. "Bring Gwen and Jonathan to me." Stephan hung up the phone, and Eric began to make plans. This concludes the second episode of Echoes in the Gallery, The Patron. Please join me, your host, Susan L. Sistrunk, next week for Episode 3, The Unexpected, where we will meet Jennifer Tuturia, a mysterious stranger with a past somehow connected to Stephan Ivanov. Until then, thank you for listening. Stay safe and love each other.